name is Beryl, and I always call myself British, I suppose. I think when I was younger that was kind of more important then than it is now, because in my childhood we were very aware of being part of an empire and celebrating Empire Day and all the things that went with it. But as life's gone on and I've been fortunate enough to be able to travel around the world, yes, it's still helpful and I'm pleased to be British, but I realise that we have to be careful that we can appear very arrogant and superior, and I think that's not helpful. And I learned at a fairly young age that it's very important to be an internationalist and to appreciate other cultures, and having worked in several now, I'm even more convinced of that. So my whole feeling about being British is now just one of many nations, and I hope with more equality. Well, I had a very good invitation in 2006 to go with a friend to South Africa, which I'd always hoped I might be able to do, but hadn't seen any opportunity. We were asked to go and help look after a training centre while the manager was away. He was not well. It was part of an organisation called the Grail, which works in various countries to work among, with any sort of field of work where they trying to develop something good. So I went with Nancy, who was an American, and we didn't know what we were going to have to do. It was a completely open ticket. It was quite fun because we sat on the plane when we got onto Frankfurt to go to Cape Town, and we said, what are we going to do? We have no idea. We hadn't been given any job description or anything. So it was a very open thing, and I quite like that. Just take what comes. And when we were packing, I thought I need a pair of shoes. It was going to be, I think it was about May, June, July time, which is their winter. On the other hand, their winter isn't anything like our winter. So I needed a pair of shoes which was going to be possible to wear anywhere. And I thought that's about as, and I didn't want to take too many shoes because we were travelling light. And I thought they were pretty multi-purpose for what was supposedly a multi-purpose job. Well, at the training centre, one of the things they were doing was trying to give training opportunities for people from the townships. And so this was an opportunity to meet people who had a very different life experience to us. And there were a very mixed group of trainees when we were there. They came from all the different sections of South African life over the course of the 6 weeks we were there. And I suppose one of the most extreme examples was talking to one of them one day, a young girl, very bright girl, who lived in the township. And one of my jobs was to try and understand how they were going to use the training. And she was obviously a leader of her little community in a very informal way, I think. People looked to her. And one of the things she told me was that people often come into the townships from outside looking for work in Cape Town. So they would come into their township and put up a few corrugated iron sheets and make themselves a little home. And part of her job was to try and help them integrate into whatever was there. so she said they need light and they need water, so we just get a piece of, shall I have it? She said if somebody's got electricity on this post, we just take a wire and we fix it up with a bulb on the other end for their shack, and that gives them light, and we find a pipe and we add it to the water pipes, and that gives them some water. It's all very informal, and that's how they go on. It wasn't surprising, but the next time I went down there, I heard that her home had been burgled and she had had a fire, because life is so unsafe and on the edge, I think, because that is the downside of South Africa. Beautiful country, many rich houses, many rich people, but this is how the oppressed have been living for a long time, still are. I suppose I want to feel that time has been spent worthwhile, and as I get older, one has to cut back. You don't have the same opportunity to multitask and do 10 things at once. I always have a list of things to do, and I have to prioritise them. I think there's always a balance between what is demanding and what's nourishing, and you have to try and keep that in balance, because the one feeds off the other. We are very, very fortunate here. I mean, I'm very, very aware we live in a very privileged area. We lack nothing. We have lots of interesting things going on. You could be involved every hour of the day in almost anything. There are societies here for everything. But there is still a big division. There are still pockets of poverty in Oxford, and I think it's important to spend a part of one's time doing something about that. But it is very easy to feel too comfortable. Well, I suppose our training as a social worker was exactly that. You have to try and see where other people are coming from to understand what they're trying to tell you. I think it's terribly important to increase understanding. Of course, there are people who will say, if you're not careful, that you can so identify with the other person that you can't see an objective solution to a problem. So you have to be careful, I think, not to entirely. You have to understand it, but not be part of it. Well, I do believe, really truly believe, that every human being has a potential gift, talent, whatever you want to call it. And if that can be brought out through family life, through school life, through experience, that's great. Where it's hindered, I think everything that hinders it is unfortunate. So I think that's the most important thing, and that they feel a sense of value and a purpose in life, which is hopefully a positive and hopeful one, and not a fearful and negative one. I think it's a huge privilege and important. Having worked in countries where they're very oppressed and the government is having a heavy hand on people, and you can't say what you think, can't write what you think, or you can be punished. I remember landing in England sometimes back from these places and thinking, goodness, now I can say what I think. I haven't got to look over my shoulder. I can write what I think. That's an amazing freedom that we never should take for granted. I suppose certainly the Christian religion in the family and since has been important stream. You know, it has been important to me and still is. But having said that, I'm aware, more and more aware, that every faith and everybody has a religious sense, whether they own it or not. I think there is a spiritual sense in everybody, and that there is a common root, which, although we call it different names, and it can be divisive between faiths, underneath I think there's a common entity that I would like to think is the best of all religions is good, the worst of all religions is dreadful. But if you can be open to others, I think that's the most important thing, and appreciate the journey they've been on from where they were. I might have been born in India and a Hindu. I might have been born in Malaya and be a Buddhist. Why not? I just happened to have been born where I was. And I think we've got to appreciate the journeys that others make, in that sense. But I like to think that every day one can find the good in what happens and the people you meet, and I don't think you have to worry too much about things that go wrong. Just hang in there and try and keep positive, I think. I think I'm just one of the most ordinary people who tries to enjoy each day. As I get older, I think I don't plan as far ahead now as I used to. I think I was full of plans and dreams when I was younger, and it's not that I don't, but I'm happy to take each year as it comes and accept that I'm not going to be doing half the things I used to do. There's lots of places I'll never get to now. I used to want to see it all, but I'm a bit like my mother. She used to say, I don't mind you going to Sudan, but please don't bring anything back. I brought so many souvenirs home. She didn't want to dust anymore. And I think that's true. You can go around the world collecting all this stuff. That's not what's important, really. It's don't bring anything. Don't bring all the things back. Just bring your experience back.